All right, I'm going to officially call our July 31st, 2026 special meeting, or virtual meeting, I guess is how I should state it, for the Oregon Transportation Commission. And with that said, we do not have anybody signed up for public comment, but um, I want to first start out thanking the staff, because the commission asked them to go back and do some extra legwork and really dive into the budget for us and help us understand um, precisely what was going on and what was being presented, because it's complicated. And as they go through explaining everything this morning, I think that people will start to realize how complicated it really is. We have some decision in front of us to submit our request budget. And so I think that they've done a really good job. And I think that as we get into the slides, you'll be able to, the public will be able to understand a little bit more what's going on. So I'm not going to talk about that anymore. With that said, I want to welcome Director Warner to his first meeting. You know, you're on board now. I think it's your first official meeting,
It is.
and virtual, so it's a little bit different, but we'll get through it, and we'll turn to you for your report.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair Brown. Yeah, it's been a whirlwind. It is, I guess, 29 days with a couple of holidays in between that I've been on board. First, I really want to shout out to the staff. We talked a little bit a moment ago about the fires and the impact it's had on our staff. I have just been amazed by the diligence of the staff, particularly over in Region 4 and Region 5, where they've just really stepped up. We had one moment earlier in the week where basically every east-west route through the state of Oregon was closed. That was 26. I-84 was closed between Baker City and Ontario, and Highway 20 was closed. And so they've done a remarkable job. I know some of our assets have been like put on alert. But our teams have just worked around the clock, and I'm just so proud of the work they've done. As we said, unfortunately, we're just at the beginning of fire season. So, let's hopefully we'll get a couple of days off, but then we're going to be right back at it. So just kudos to the teams at ODOT for all the work they've done. And that doesn't even really talk about the other wildfire workers. And I think we have thousands of people actually fighting fires right now. So just our thoughts are with them as they're moving forward. But yeah, so here we go. As in my first few weeks, I've really had the opportunity to travel a little bit, and I'm looking forward to more of that. I was in Region 3 in Roseburg. I spent time in White City with the team down there. I visited the DMV in Medford. I've also been spending quite a bit of time up in Region 1, getting to know particularly the Rose Quarter project, which I think we'll have some discussion on next meeting. I've also been very involved in the IBR discussion. I've met a number of times with Secretary Meredith from Washington State. As you know, July 1st, my first day, we did receive the record of decision. I don't think those events are funny in terms of on the east side of the road there. So just really shout out to the team in Region 2, Anna, Savannah, and Derek, who was one of the engineers on it from ODOT. He's also from LeGrand, so it's good to see somebody from my side of the mountains there. So it was really good. I also spent some time under the Center Street Bridge, taking a look at that project. I know that's a big one for us. Had a lot of discussions in terms of highway safety in Yamhill County with the Newburgh Dundee, and also just all the work on 99 and 18, critical safety work that we're doing. I also, next week, I'm heading to Eastern Oregon. So I'll be going to Umatilla, Hermiston, Pendleton, LeGrand, and Baker City next week, along with, and then right after that, I'll be over in Bend. And then down in the OTC meeting in Klamath Falls. So overall, I've met with the folks at DMV. I've met with the CCD folks, and it's been a whirlwind, but it's actually been super fun to get to know the staff. I think this budget discussion is something that we've really leaned into in terms of our managers and just all of the folks the within the agency, because this impacts them. And so we're just trying to explain kind of where we are, because it's a long process. But we're really committed to being transparent and getting all the information out that we can in terms of moving forward. So I'm also here to answer any questions. But yeah, it's been a whirlwind, but I'm just having a great time, and really I can't say enough about what a great team we have at ODOT and the work that they're doing. Yeah, it's been great.
I want to thank you. I know that it's been a whirlwind, and I know that you've really leaned in hard, and you're trying to make the rounds, and it's big. And I don't think people realize how big it is, or how many things ODOT touches, including DMVs, et cetera. It's a lot. So thank you. And I forgot to, in my earlier remarks, our next candidate for the commission, Don Shanklin, is on here. So good luck. I know that there's an appointment coming up, so we'll see if you end up falling on the commission. I'm pretty sure you are. So welcome. And with that said, I think we'll move on to Deputy Director Travis Brouwer and let him start talking to us about the agency budget, his favorite thing.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, for the record, I am Travis Brouwer, ODOT's Deputy Director. This meeting, special meeting that we're having today, came out of our last discussion on the agency request budget back in June, where the commission asked for an opportunity for a deeper dive into the budget and also an opportunity to weigh in and influence some of the budget reductions proposed. We had to send the actual total budget reductions to the state CFO at the end of June, under the state budgeting process. So you approved the total reductions back at that meeting in June. But today, we are going to bring to you a proposal and want your feedback on a way of breaking those reductions down into 3 tiers as requested by the governor's office and the CFO. This is something we did in the past with the legislature, the last 2, the long legislative session, the short legislative session, as a way to help prioritize where we have opportunities for budget reductions that have the least impact, all the way up to those that are really, truly, deeply impactful, and then be able to share that with the legislature. We are also going to present to you the final agency request budget for your approval. It's due to the CFO at the end of August, and we can now show the number of jobs that would be eliminated in the budget to bring it into balance. And there's some other relatively minor adjustments to expenditures that we've made in the last 2 months since you took up that budget. So next slide, please. Here's our roadmap for the discussion today. We're going to give you a little bit of background about the budget reductions we've taken to date, as well as those that are coming in the 27-29 biennium, including showing you how we came to the budget reductions at the overall level that you approved back in June. And then also Mr. Porter will talk about the tiered reduction proposal. We're going to bring up the division administrators to really talk about the impact of the reductions to date, how they've saved money and become more efficient, also where they've cut service levels, and then looking forward at how the budget reductions would impact their ability to serve Oregonians if we do have to move forward with those. Stefan Hamlin will come up and request your approval of the final agency request budget. And then Daniel Porter will close this out by talking with you about potential options for redirecting funds. So throughout this, we're going to build in a couple of breaks where we'll stop, pause, and have discussion. But feel free, of course, to jump in at any time and ask us as we go through this. Next slide, please. So as we have discussed over time, this is our 4th biennium that we're making reductions to the budget. This biennium, as you can see, our budget is more than $200 million smaller than it otherwise would be in our operations and maintenance categories. About 150 million of that is permanent reductions we have taken, while $78 million is the temporary reduction the legislature took in February. And over the course of this 8-year period, these 4 biennia, we've reduced spending by over $500 million. In that time, we've made great strides to make ODOT a leaner organization with significant efficiencies and budget savings all across our operations and maintenance functions. That includes everything from consolidating facilities to save millions of dollars each biennium, to implementing new IT systems that allow us to serve customers more efficiently with lower costs, to just finding general better ways to do things, all the way to eliminating or holding vacant 11 senior executive positions as we've looked to slim down the agency. But those budget reductions have come at a cost. They have required us to reduce program levels and customer service levels. So we're going to have each of the divisions come up to talk to you about the good stories of how they found some ways to save money and become more efficient, and also the not so good stories of how they've had to cut service levels. Next slide, please.
Travis,
before you.
Yeah, Commissioner Chang has a comment.
I just wanted to clarify, these numbers are not adjusted for inflation.
That is correct. So if you were to actually adjust for inflation, the numbers would be adjusted in the sense that these are in nominal dollars by year, but at the same time, we have not adjusted for inflation, because when you make a reduction in one biennium that is permanent, the next biennium that is actually a larger reduction under current service level budget.
Yeah. Okay. And looking across the time period covered by this slide, we're thinking about a period where some years we are experiencing 8% inflation, and even now still over 3% per year. So the buying power of the dollars that we have, even before, even without considering inflation. So, looking at this without considering inflation and then thinking about how much less buying power those dollars have, adjusted for inflation is really, stark and significant for us to be aware of.
Yeah, Commissioner Chang, I should actually clarify one thing. Under a current service level budget, which is what the state enterprise uses, we do adjust for inflation up, and these reductions are then from that amount. But the actual dollars that I show on this chart have not been adjusted for inflation. So even as we have taken reductions from our current service level budget, we have seen the budget grow in these areas a little bit, but it really has been very flat in recent years because our revenue is very flat.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so let's go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So this just gives you a sense of how the reductions that we have made in the 25-27 legislative budget have been distributed. And these are actually reductions that were made by the legislature in two rounds. One that was permanent, $47 million that was taken out of the budget permanently in 2025. That is shown in red. And then there was $78 million in one-time temporary reductions in 2026. As you can see, these reductions primarily hit project delivery and administration. We generally tried to protect maintenance, DMV, and Commerce Compliance Division, particularly from the permanent reductions. So you can see in the red, almost all of those permanent reductions were in project delivery and administration. The temporary reductions were just basically vacancies we had available that the legislature counted toward our budget reduction this biennium. Next slide, please. All right, so that's this current biennium. Let's look ahead to the next biennium.
Travis, a question to your previous slide. The project delivery, is some of that reduction a reflection of completion of the projects in 2017? So there was a lot of projects and we're sort of out of that phase now.
So, Commissioner, it's a really good question because I should have clarified. When we talk about project delivery, it is the vast majority of that project delivery budget, which is by far our largest in the agency, is actual project expenditures. But the reductions that we have made are in the cost of administering projects, the staffing costs in particular, because the project money in this budget area is dedicated by state and federal law, and neither you nor us can redirect that in any way. So this is really a reduction in spending on our people primarily, with a lot of vacancies. That is in part because our project delivery pipeline has narrowed and shrunk a bit as projects have become more expensive, as we've wrapped up many of the HB 2017 projects, as you noted. Our project pipeline is a bit smaller, so we've been able to economize on staffing in this area and just not fill a lot of positions as they have come vacant.
Well, just to be clear, for me, this appears great, and it is, but if you're looking in terms of resizing the agency, we don't have as many projects now with the completion of all that, so the need would be less.
Commissioner Byer, I think that's correct. And you see that in what we've already reduced when the legislature eliminated 120 positions in our budget last year. About half of that came from project delivery positions. And you'll see that in as we go forward and share with you, particularly our tiered reductions, we would first reduce vacant positions in project delivery as part of our tiered reductions, because there is less of a project pipeline where you need those positions going forward. Okay, next slide, please. So as we shared last month, we have a $200 million budget gap. And I want to be very clear that this is specific to the state highway fund dollars that are used for operations and maintenance for this coming biennium. It is not all of our funds. Many of our fund sources are still quite robust. And this is where we have the shortfall. So this is where we have to make reductions. The actual shortfall next biennium would have been more like $290 million. But the legislature essentially prepaid for the first 6 months of the next biennium through the reductions and redirections they approved back in the March legislative session. So the legislature has three basic options to close the budget gap. They can provide additional revenue, as they attempted to do in HB 3991. They can redirect funding within ODOT's budget to operations and maintenance areas where we have the shortfall, or they can make additional budget reductions. For the agency request budget, the agency and the OTC, really the only option is to make reductions. Although we are going to talk a little bit later today about the options that are available for redirection of funding within ODOT's budget. So next slide, please. This slide we shared with you last month. This is how the $200 million in reductions was distributed across the operations and maintenance budget areas. So you approved these total reductions in the ARB in June, as we were required to submit these reductions to the state CFO early in the budget process by the end of June. And it's important to note that all parts of the agency that rely on state highway fund dollars that are available for operations and maintenance were impacted. But as I'll describe in just a moment, we did make efforts to reduce the impact to maintenance. So next slide, please. I wanted to show you the reductions you approved in 25-27 that went into the legislative process compared to those that we put forward in 27-29. As you can see, the numbers for most areas were a lot smaller, in part because the total went from $354 million on the right in 25-27 to $200 million this biennium. But we also sliced the pie much differently to limit the impacts on maintenance. 2 years ago, maintenance was over 50% of the total reductions, but we heard loud and clear from across the spectrum, from the commission, from legislators, stakeholders, and the public, that we should reduce the impact of maintenance from budget reductions. So this biennium, we avoided taking purely proportional reductions. We took a disproportionate reduction in project delivery, even though project delivery was already hit by significant permanent reductions last year. And we also took reductions in Commerce Compliance Division and DMV. Last year, last biennium, we tried to shield them to reduce impacts to customers, but that would have required even deeper cuts to maintenance. Administration.
Travis, Commissioner Baker's hand is up. So.
Yeah, go ahead and finish that thought, Travis, and then I've got a question for you.
So we did take a fairly similar proportional reduction to administration compared to the other areas, because we didn't think it was wise to go much deeper. They already took significant reductions last year and gave up about 8% of their workforce in the legislative reduction. So As a result, maintenance is less than 40% of the total reductions, as you can see, and that's down by about 12 points compared to where it was last time when it was the majority.
Commissioner Baker.
Travis, I'm wondering about the graph, and I'm wondering about cutting maintenance at all. And did you ever consider taking the approach that we're not going to cut maintenance and that we're going to find the savings in other places? Because some of the things like DMV, we're talking about inconvenience. When we're talking about maintenance, we're really talking about the conditions of the road, safety, and I know that these are really hard conversations to have, but I think there's some benefit in saying, okay, we've got a real problem here. We really need to rethink it, and we're not going to cut maintenance any further because as soon as we cut maintenance, that just it delivers a poor service, and we're creating more problems down the road. So just a question. I might even challenge to say let's add more back into maintenance because we've taken too much out at this point. But could you comment on that? What you're thinking about that, and did you ever consider leaving maintenance whole and finding other places? And you know what? I recognize how hard this is on everybody. There's no good answer here. So.
Yeah, Commissioner, we absolutely did consider trying to keep maintenance whole. The challenge is with a $200 million reduction. Just for comparison's sake, DMV's total budget is about $300 million. So if you were to say, let's hit DMV, then you would be slicing its budget by 2/3. The impacts to customers at that point would be catastrophic, and we would likely have significant impacts to our ability to collect revenue, which would just be a death spiral then. We would be collecting less revenue, which would further the budget reduction. The other thing that's important to note is any cuts from DMV and commerce compliance, we only save about half that because the cost of those come off the top before they're distributed to local governments. So local governments basically get half of the savings in those areas. So there are real limits to what we can cut. The same is true of finance and budget division, administrative services. Those two together have a budget that's a little north of $300 million. And so you'd be looking at, extremely deep reductions there. And at some point, you would have a non-functional agency that couldn't support the function of maintenance. Maintenance is certainly the tooth of the organization, but we do need a tail that helps move the agency forward and administer all of the funding.
Travis, could you remind us what is included in administrative services? Does that include our IT department,
Yep. So administrative services is the support services division and the director's office, with communications, government relations, audits, and a few other functions as well. And so when you look at the total FTE within that group, I believe it's about 2/3 IT. And so if you were to eliminate or make massive reductions to administrative services, you would primarily be impacting IT. And that means we would essentially not be able to have the systems functional. I think of the DMV, where when we have an issue with the DMV, we had an issue with printers a few years ago where Microsoft had a problem. We have problems with other things, and our IT folks surge in and help DMV and get them reopened so they can continue to serve customers. So if we were to make deep slashing reductions to administrative services, even deeper than what is proposed here, at some point we would not be able to operate the agency. And I will note that administrative services already took an 8% reduction in their FTE last biennium. So they have taken very large disproportionate impacts because that was the first place we looked when we came to this. Like I said earlier, we tried to keep maintenance whole, even if that meant going deeper in administration. All right, so let's go back and look at or go to the next slide, please. So the reductions that you approved last meeting, we have now had the time to translate those into the number of jobs that would need to be eliminated based on that $200 million budget reduction. We would have to eliminate 548 total jobs. The good news is that is lower than the approximately 1,000 we were looking at having to cut last year or back in February. That's primarily because our budget gap is smaller. With the legislature, as I noted, prepaid $90 million toward next biennium, so it reduced that number. This will be a mix of vacant and filled jobs. Obviously, we would look first at non-critical vacancies that we would eliminate first where we can. However, each division had to base their reduction on their business need and where they would stop doing things or do less, finding ways to reduce the agency's size and service levels while trying to minimize the impact to ODOT's ability to achieve our mission. So in some cases, that meant there was a mismatch between what jobs were vacant currently and what jobs are most critical. So that may mean preserving a critical vacant job in a program area that's really important by eliminating a less critical filled job in an area that may not be as critical as judged by our ability to serve our customers. So that means there would almost certainly be some layoffs under this, even though we do have a significant number of vacant positions. Overall, if we were to go over this cliff and have to eliminate 548 jobs, that would eliminate about 11% of our workforce. That would bring our total workforce reduction to nearly 14% when you add in the 120 positions that were eliminated last year. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Porter, who will talk now about the tiered reduction.
Sorry.
Travis, before
I was trying to get to you, Lee. Sorry.
that's okay. Travis, before you go on, I'm just curious in this. Where is the railroad functions and transit and some of the others? Are those in policy and analysis, or where are they?
So our public transportation office is now part of the policy data and analysis division. However, we also have the rail regulatory staff that are housed in Commerce Compliance Division that are focused on rail and transit safety. However, all of those functions are funded out of non-state highway fund dollars. They are funded through the Transportation Operating Fund, which we call the Lawnmower Fund. They're funded through federal funds or the Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund, or just other non-state highway fund dollars. So there is no shortfall in those areas. Therefore, they do not have reductions here. Because of the unique statutory structure, which is fairly rigid and inflexible, we cannot, in our agency request budget, move money from one of those non-state highway fund dollars elsewhere, and therefore there's no reductions in those areas. That will be something we talk about a little bit later, about redirection of funds that the legislature may choose to do at a later date if they wish to preserve operations and maintenance within the agency and instead cut somewhere else.
So this chart and the previous slide related just to those functions funded by the Transportation Fund?
That is correct. The State Highway Fund is where we have the shortfall. That's where we're making the reductions and where the job reductions would hit. The legislature may choose to redirect funds in a way that would hit other areas of the agency.
Are those positions funding fungible at all?
The funds are only fungible. The state funds are fungible in some cases, but only legislative change to statute. They're not fungible for us. We've already taken really the maximum opportunity to move funds in ways that preserve operations and maintenance. And the federal funds are really not fungible at all. They must be used for the purposes the federal government provides them.
How about the funding for the rail, not the safety side, but the not Amtrak, the train?
Yeah.
The train and the state buses.
Amtrak Cascade service, including the point buses that complement it, are funded through two primary sources. One is the custom license plate dollars, that is directed by statute to the passenger rail fund. The other is the transportation operating fund, the lawnmower fund, which is made up of those non-highway fuels taxes. So it is not fungible for us or for you. Of course, under changes in statute, the legislature could redirect that funding.
Is that a huge amount of money?
Daniel will share that a little bit later, but there is a not insignificant amount in the transportation operating fund. And so that is one of the areas where the legislature chose to redirect funding last biennium, or this biennium.
So how much money are we talking about roughly?
I believe it's about $20 million a year, but Daniel can share more detail about that when we get to that point.
So not that 20 million isn't a significant number, but in terms of this budget, it's not much.
It would be a small portion of the overall shortfall. And there are a lot of critical functions that we fund with that. Basically, any legislative mandate that we do not have state or cannot use state highway fund dollars for, we fund from that area. So that includes passenger rail. It includes some other areas in public transportation, but it also includes things like our motor voter work, because that was not funded by the legislature when that legislation was created. So it is a source we go to for multiple functions. Commerce Compliance Division uses it for household good mover regulation, for example. So really broad use of those funds.
Thanks, Travis.
Okay, I'll pick it up from here. Thank you, Mr. Brouwer. That was fantastic overview of the budget situation. For the record, and good morning, Chair Brown, members of the commission. For the record, Daniel Porter, ODOT's Finance and Budget Division Administrator. I get the privilege of kind of talking to you about the piece that we do want your input on, which is like our tiered reduction proposal. As Travis said, the governor's office and our DAS chief financial office have asked us to develop tiers, again, similar to what we did in 2025 and 2026. In the 25 session, right, the legislature had asked us to develop some sort of prioritization around our potential reductions, and that led to this sort of development of the tiering concept. The idea is essentially like with three different tiers, you have sort of the buckets of proposed reductions into a tier one, least impactful, to tier three, meaning most impactful. So you can take tier one, $50 million, tier two is tier one plus then tier two, another $50 million for $100 million total, or go all the way to tier three where you would take the first 50, the second 50, and then the last 100 to get to the total 200. So if our total reduction we'd be looking at is 200 million, breaking it up into these tiers allows the legislature and the governor and her budget to say something like, well, we'll take tier one reductions and then we'll find $150 million in additional revenue somewhere else, whether it's through redirection or through new revenue sources to close the $200 million gap. So this is kind of an easy way to give them sort of options, and then it gives us the ability then to say, okay, if tier one is 50 million, what are we putting into that 50 million? And or tier two, the next 50 million, what are we putting into that 50 million? And so that's really going to walk you through today is sort of how we came to develop, particularly tier one, because tier one is going to be the first place they go in terms of taking reductions. So the next slide kind of gives you a breakdown of what our tier one would look like. And like Travis said, these are not proportional. And so what you see in here is that project delivery and policy data analysis division are both taking larger reductions in tier one and tier two. Project delivery particularly is taking like a larger overall share than what they would be proportional to. And that helps preserve maintenance and DMV, right? These sort of like customer service facing sites like Travis was talking to you about. So this is this is the math behind the 50 million. And then if you go to the next slide, it kind of puts it all in a table format where you can see all three tiers next to each other. So tier one, then you can see how you get to the first 50 million, tier two, how you get to the next 50 million, and then tier three, how you get to the final 100 million. So this is where you can see where project delivery and policy data analysis both are taking like their entire amounts basically are in tier one and tier two. And then that helps preserve maintenance and D&V so that they're not having to take the bulk of theirs until you get into tier three. Again, the idea here is like essentially legislature can come in and say, okay, we're just going to take tier one, and that is a way to sort of preserve maintenance and D&V, and while project delivery and policy and analysis will be taking a larger share within that first tier. So I'll let you sit on that for a sec, because that's a lot of numbers on one table. Commissioner Baker.
Thanks, Daniel. Obviously this is really hard, and I heard you use the word proportional, and when I hear the word proportional, it makes me nervous because now we're talking about, somehow having fairness in terms of headcount by division. And it's not a question of fairness. It's a question of being able to get the job done that we need to get done with fewer resources. So the notion of proportional is one that honestly, I wouldn't be paying much attention to. I think the real key is, where do we need the resources to get the job done? So I'd encourage you to think that way. I know that that's really hard organizationally because it can seem unfair, but you know what? We're talking about degrees of unfairness everywhere here. And, it's obviously difficult, but the right decision might really seem to be unfair somewhere if we're trying to do this in a proportional sense. Does that make sense? Does that?
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. Like the point I'm trying to make is that this isn't proportional. Like this, if it was proportional, the maintenance and D&V numbers would be a lot bigger in tier one than they are. We are able to sort of preserve them more in tier one by taking larger reductions from project delivery and policy data analysis. And so that
and you take it out of project delivery simply because we don't have the projects.
And we have positions that are vacant, right?
Yes.
I think that's a big thing, is that this is mostly vacant positions that we would continue to hold vacant.
Oh. Well, that changes my thinking a little bit. Because when we're talking about vacant positions that we're going to hold vacant, then we ought to be talking about non-vacant positions that we're going to have to cut out of places like maintenance and DMV.
Commissioner, I think what you see is in the tier one in particular, the vast majority of these positions are vacancies that we've been holding in case there was additional legislative funding and we could bring back our service levels again. If there's a funding package and there's more projects to build, then we would need those positions. If there is not, then we would be essentially eliminating vacant positions across most of these areas. That's not to say there aren't some layoffs, but in tier one, it is almost all vacancies that we have been holding and with reduced service levels associated with those vacancies.
Okay,
Yeah,
so with tier one, just so I understand then, we're really not talking about any reduced service levels anywhere here, for the most part. Maybe there's an exception here or there, but these are mostly vacant positions that are not going to be filled. Is that right?
Compared to today's service levels, that is correct. But I would say compared to where we have been in the past, we would be locking in lower service levels than what we have offered in the past.
Great. Thanks, Travis. That's
and
an important distinction.
The reason, and Commissioner, the reason why these positions are vacant is because that was part of the deal for this biennium we're in right now, is that we had to hold like 138 positions vacant across the agency and specific amounts in each division. And so project delivery has to hold a certain number of positions vacant. And so then this would just be a continuation of holding those positions vacant this biennium into next biennium.
Okay.
Sure. Vice Chair, your hand's up, but you're muted.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Daniel, the question I have is the impact on the reductions, the impact on ability to raise revenue, and whether some of these cuts would do that. And I'm particularly looking at DMV and commerce and compliance, but I suspect that, and I don't know where within the budget the rough, tough transition is, or anything else that would collect fees. And so question is, how does these things impact our ability to raise the revenue?
Excellent question. I can speak to the fuels tax and road usage charge components because they live in my division, the finance and budget division. And I think you both Amy Joyce and Carla Phelps can obviously address those questions to DMV and CCD as they go through kind of their impact analysis for you. From the fuels tax and road usage charge, right? We're able to, again, it's similar to what Travis said. For that, our division, we're able to, within tier 1, just hold positions vacant or eliminate vacant positions. So, but we're still moving forward with implementing the road usage charge program. So there's I would say a pressure on us to minimize what that staffing level looks like. Because if you're adding staff, they're adding costs, and so you got to cut somewhere else, right? So we're having to balance like adding what we need to implement the mandatory program against minimizing what that is, because that just means we have to reduce more somewhere else within the division. So that's our conflict point.
You still got to have enough staff that you can collect the revenue.
Correct.
Your enforcement has to be there, or you'll have diminished revenue.
Right.
I'm not exactly sure on commerce and compliance how the shifting to the diesel tax and the work that needs to be done there, and how that will affect that division. I know it won't be immediate, but that's something over time that we're going to get into.
Yes, exactly. It will be, because it doesn't take effect till July 1, 2029. But it is a massive change for Commerce Compliance Division and Finance and Budget Division with that point of taxation change of diesel. For them, they have a new system they're gonna have to put in place, and how it works with the International Fuels Tax Association. So yeah, they have a lot of and roadside testing. There's just a lot they have to do, and Carla can talk about that. As well as, and we'll have this conversation as we move forward, as we get closer to implementation of that change.
That one on the commerce, the trucking taxes, that's one where you actually may have some increased staff demand in the short term to put a new system in place that in the long term may allow for reduction in administrative costs.
Quite possibly, yes. All right, next slide is Travis has already kind of talked about the positions piece. So this is the job reductions that are associated with the different tiers. Again, within tier 1, these are most all of these positions are vacant positions. But as you move into tier 2, and particularly in tier 3, you're into we're into positions that wouldn't be vacant, and so that but again, tier one is really tied down to mostly vacant positions. And again, as Travis said, like even at 548 positions, that's like over 11% of our total workforce that would be reduced. But this is at this point, it's just a point in time in this process, right? We have to do this as part of our agency request budget because we can't, as Travis said, we can't solve any of our budget the budget gap with any type of revenue redirection or new revenue. That's not something we're allowed to do. So we have to just cut in order to balance. And so to do that, that is where this 548 positions comes in. But there's going to be a lot of conversation between now and like next July when we would have to actually make decisions. So we have revenue forecasts between now and then that change what the revenue outlook is like. And again, when you get into legislative session, like they could take tier one and then some revenue or revenue redirection, and then our numbers that we'd have to reduce would be a lot different, right? So this is just where we are, and then as we move forward, we'll get opportunities to revisit this, recalculate our budget gap, and then the numbers will change over time. But this can give you a sense, though, of what the magnitude is. At 200 million is roughly 550 positions is about what that would equate to. So that's kind of where we are with the tiered job reductions, the tiered proposal. I think Travis and I are happy to take any more questions. Otherwise, I think what we want to do now is transition to having our division administrators kind of talk to you about what the reductions have been, the impact has been for each of the divisions, because again, we've been living under these reductions already for multiple biennia, and then we'll come back to you, as Travis said, with kind of the budget numbers conversation at the end.
Daniel, not now, but could you revise this chart and give us a starting place, a column that has maybe two columns, total authorized position by these areas, and then perhaps showing positions supported by other funding sources, so that we have a total picture of this?
Yes, and you will get actually Stefan brings you to a table later on in the presentation that actually does have the total positions by each area. So and then also a column for the amount that are being reduced for each of these areas. So I think we already have a slide that gives you what you're looking for, Commissioner.
Okay.
Commissioner, that is specifically attachment 1, which is posted on the OTC website, which shows those positions in FTE. So for example, there are 1,500 positions in maintenance, approximately 1,155 in project delivery. DMV has 875, so you can refer to that to give you a sense of what the reductions are. So we wanted to pause here just to see if there are any further comments or questions. This is something that this proposal will be something we submit at a later date to the CFO, as it's not a formal part of the budget process except for this biennium. And as a result, there are opportunities for the commission to weigh in about where the mix across those tiers should land, even though the total reductions are basically set by the budget reduction process that has already been completed.
Go ahead, Commissioner Chang, and then I'll let Don Shanklin.
Don had his hand up first, so why don't you take his question
Okay.
or comment first?
Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, is there an analysis that we will hear that speaks to the impact of these reductions in these areas?
That's the Commissioner Shanklin. That is the next item on the agenda, is to really talk through the reduction in each of these areas and what the impact will be, not just to ODOT. It's less important how this impacts ODOT, but really how does it impact our customers? How does it impact the transportation system? So we're going to ask each of the division administrators to talk that through very shortly.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner Chang.
My question may be something that's better held for later, but I just want to flag that when we do talk about redirection, I mean, I assume that part of this process of this agency recommended budget is we have an opportunity to, if not make recommendations about redirection, at least just describe or explain to the legislature and the governor what certain redirection scenarios might do for us, or what kind of how they would play out, what the impacts would be. And I really want, when we get to talking about redirection, I really want us to discuss the legacy House Bill 2017 projects, because I mean, a lot of the things we're talking about right now are, a couple of $1 million here and there. And that is the one place that I can think of in the last year or two where, we're moving tens or hundreds of millions of dollars around. And those legacy House Bill 2017 projects, they were legislatively directed. In some cases, they have specific revenue streams associated with them that can only be used for those projects. So it's not within our power to redirect those funds, even though a whole lot of people, like maybe I especially get it on my side of the state, but people are constantly asking me about can't you just take the money from the mega projects and use it for, operations and maintenance? To which I say, we are implementing the direction of the legislature with the dollars that the legislature specifically allocated, for these projects. So you all can tell me whether this is an appropriate time to discuss that, or farther on into the meeting.
We're going to have a lengthy discussion about that at the end of the meeting as the last agenda item. So I think that's probably the best time to have that conversation. And Daniel will be well prepared to discuss that now.
Okay, thank you.
All right, if there's no further questions or comments, Madam Chair, I'd suggest moving on to the next section and having the division administrators talk through their perspectives about what budget impacts they've already seen, as well as what a $200 million reduction would do to the agency and our ability to serve our customers.
Sure, but before we move on, I want to apologize to Commissioner Shanklin. I didn't realize that you were appointed officially. And so I was in a dilemma here, sitting here sweating, thinking, how am I supposed to let him comment if he's not a commissioner yet? Not knowing that you actually were appointed. So welcome. I apologize.
Thank you.
I did not get that memo. So welcome aboard, Commissioner. Okay, go ahead, Travis. Let's move on.
All right, I believe Ms. Peltz is up first.
Good morning, commissioners. My name is Tova Peltz. I am ODOT's Delivery and Operations Division Administrator. Appreciate the opportunity to share an overview of how these impact, how the reductions would impact Oregonians through reductions to the Delivery and Operations Division. I think I'll be able to touch on some of the questions that have come up in the first portion of this presentation. That Travis and Daniel were sharing, and also happy to answer other questions. Wanting to start out here and acknowledge that the reductions that we're looking at with the 27-29 agency request budget are on top of reductions that we've been making in the agency and specifically in the delivery and operations division over the last several budget cycles. So we are seeing like the compounding effects of reductions in delivery and operations, and really like specifically on the maintenance and operations side of our shop. That being said, we are continuously like taking steps to be making reductions and finding where we can finding efficiencies to reduce costs across our division. In the last year, leading up to this conversation, we've taken a number of steps to cut costs, and I want to recognize those and speak to the impacts that we're already experiencing. We on the facility side, let me back up. Particularly for Commissioner Shanklin, Delivery and Operations Division is a combination of both our project delivery folks, who are our engineers and our project managers and our agreement writers, our technical specialists, scientists that work in the environmental permitting space, our construction teams, and those resources, those folks are distributed across the whole state. We have project delivery folks that are based in Salem through our statewide branches, and then we also have folks in project delivery in our technical centers across our 5 regions in Oregon, and that represents, as Travis said before, about 1,100 positions across the state. D&O is also maintenance and operations, where we have about 1,500 positions also distributed across the state. We have a maintenance and operations branch that's based in Salem, and also has fleet resources across the state. And then we have our maintenance and operations, our maintenance teams, which are crews that are geographically located all over our highway system across Oregon, and are in places strategically to provide service to communities and provide maintenance services on everything from I-5 and I-84, our biggest interstates, to our smallest low volume rural roads. So and as I said, we've been making reductions over several biennium, but most recently we've been doing some cost cutting. We've moved out of 2 leased facilities and move folks into ODOT owned buildings. We're seeing about $1 million in biennial savings as a result of that, and we've consolidated crews to reduce buildings. We've restructured some of our reporting and have eliminated a number of senior management positions in project delivery to consolidate our teams. Last year, for this biennium, 66 positions were eliminated as well, and we have many long-term position vacancies in project delivery, which I'll speak more to as I get into the details of the reductions. In the category of major projects, we've made some really significant adjustments in management and oversight of our largest projects over the last year. The Urban Mobility Office was closed down in summer of 2025, and with that, project shifted from the Urban Mobility Office to delivery and operations for maintenance and oversight. That also included shrinking, reduction of positions and changing structure, where there are also efficiencies. All of this to say, there are a lot of steps that we've been taking over the last year, in particular for budget reductions, and then there are just continued risks that we're experiencing as an outcome of the continued reductions, and some of those. We're continuing to see our asset conditions in decline, pavement conditions, bridge conditions, culvert conditions, unstable slopes. And I know I've had the opportunity to speak to you all about our condition reports and state of condition. We have fewer resources and money for proactive system maintenance. Our fleet and our facilities are all aging, and we have a backlog of maintenance for those as well. And with all of the vacancies that we're carrying in project delivery, we have just less in-house technical expertise, and that's having an impact on how we do our work. And there are a lot of risks. There are a number of risks associated with that. So let's go to the next slide, and I'm gonna dive into maintenance reductions in particular. So the tier 1 maintenance reductions that Daniel and Travis introduced include 17 positions that would be eliminated, and all of those positions are vacant. So those wouldn't be that wouldn't require layoffs. We'd be eliminating positions that are already vacant. But a nuance to the maintenance reduction is that our maintenance budget is split about 50-50 between positions and materials, supplies, and services. And so when we make our tier 1 reduction, it's easy to look at it and say that's only 17 positions and they're already vacant, but that's also roughly $7 million in supplies and services that we'll be cutting, which means that we will see service impacts in with the tier 1 reductions, because we will have less materials and fewer services that we'll be able to deliver with tier 1 reductions. So I don't want to minimize tier 1 and say that we will be able to continue business as usual with tier 1 reductions, because it represents $7 million or so of supplies and services that we won't be able to deliver. As we move down the tiers and we look at this reduction in totality, we would be moving towards layoffs. This represents the reduction in total represents more than a 10% reduction in positions across maintenance and operations, and for every, and that value is again 50% positions and 50%, roughly 50% positions and 50% supplies and services. So one of the things we've spoken about at length in the past is what does reducing maintenance by this many people, what does that look like on the ground? In this, with this reduction, we wouldn't be closing maintenance stations, but shrinking the size of our crews. And so right now, about less than a third of our crews operate with 5 or fewer team members. And if this full reduction were implemented, we would have more than half of our crews operating with 5 or fewer team members. And I just want to put some details, what does that mean? Our crews range in size from 20 plus people in the winter up at government camp to fewer than 5 people on some of our more remote and rural communities. And the sizes sometimes fluctuate seasonally, because we bring on seasonal folks to help in the winter and in the summer, depending on what the on the geographic location of the crew and what services they need to provide. When we cut our crew sizes down, it means that small crews can't do as much by themselves. So a crew of fewer than 5 people can't do work that requires a lane closure, because they can't close the lane safely and manage traffic control and do the work inside the closed lane. So it means that 2 crews need to work together in order to do that work that previously could be done by just 1 crew. Just that shrinking crew sizes just eliminates a lot of the efficiency and functionality. And what that means for communities and folks on the ground, travelers, is that we're doing everything. We would wind up doing everything a lot slower. Our service levels will drop. Our service levels for summer maintenance, things that we do pavement repair work, ditch cleaning, culvert cleaning, these things slope cleaning, vegetation removal, these things that we do to take care of the system so that when severe weather events happen, they're less likely to cause failures. And then in the winter, those smaller crew sizes mean that we're doing less snow plowing, less frequent snow plowing, which means that communities can be isolated. And so I want to emphasize that the communities across Oregon and travelers across Oregon, with these reductions, will wind up seeing extended lane and highway closures. We'll see more more like small system failures that require maintenance work, and that maintenance work will take longer to do because we'll have to pull crews from different parts of the state to get it done. I think that overall the impact is a reduction in safety across the system for Oregonians. And I know that's not something that any of us want to see. I really appreciate Commissioner Baker's comment about the risk of the maintenance operations reductions. I see there are a couple of questions, so I will pause for
Vice Chair?
pause to answer.
Go ahead, Vice Chair. Or I can't see Commissioner Chang, so I don't know if he has his hand up.
Well,
Nope.
but
Go ahead.
is, I understand what you're saying here, but it's pretty generic and not getting I don't think we're getting as clear picture of what some of the impact means. What I think you're saying, last time we were talking, last year, 2 years, whatever it was, when we did this, we were talking about having to consolidate some of our maintenance stations, which increased travel time and that. And one that I remember that I was particularly opposed against was we were talking about eliminating striping, fog line striping, and delaying some of that. This doesn't really touch on that. And I suspect what you're trying to say on some of this is that the crew size that we'll be getting to things, fixing potholes and cleaning culverts slower, which could, in fact, result in faster deterioration of the highway. Am I on track there? And
Vice Chair Byer, you are. We will also be, we will also be in full reduction, like fog line stripe. We will not be able to continue to place edge line striping on low volume highways. That will continue, like that is true. Same as before. We will also be closing ODOT run rest areas. I think when we talked about this, like going into last biennium, or this biennium, I should say, we were emphasizing closing maintenance facilities. What we found is that the cost savings of closing facilities isn't realized. Like what the cost savings is in the reduction of crew sizes, and that when we actually look at the cost of people needing to travel long distances to do maintenance because we've closed certain stations, our strategy is instead to reduce crew sizes but keep crews essentially across all those stations. So we would continue to have those stations would continue to be open. In some cases, they would be used as more as staging areas than anything else. But we'll have crews distributed across the state. We're not looking to close facilities. Would be some consolidation of crews, so multiple stations may report to a single manager and be substantially smaller.
But wouldn't that mean if you're consolidating crews, even if you kept the station open, there'd be nobody there?
No, there would just be a few. There could be a station that has 2 or 3 team members at it, based out of it and working out of it.
Still seems like you're increasing or decreasing efficiency.
Well, I think that in all of these cases, we're decreasing efficiency. I mean, I don't think that there isn't as we've parsed out the scale of these reductions, there isn't nothing about reducing maintenance by $78 million, is about efficiency, because we're losing efficiency, no matter what. And we're seeing conditions decline, and we're seeing reduction in services, and we're seeing a reduction in safety. All of those things, all of those things will be true with this full reduction. Well, with any of this reduction.
I think from the citizens' perspective, and probably the reflection on legislators, what they're going to see first and hear about is if we decrease our striping, they're going to hear about that. It's going to be dangerous. And if you're going to close some of the rest areas, they're going to hear about that. And probably not so much on the pothole side, although the impact to the road system may be greater, but less visible to the public in the short term.
Commissioner Shanklin.
So I just have a question because as I hear in some of these cuts, it seems like, and I'm looking at it from I have my insurance hat on right now, but I'm looking at the risk meter going through the roof for the public with some of these shortfalls. And how are we looking at risk meters? Because if we're looking at, let's say, closing some of the rest areas along the highway, just because the rest area is closed doesn't mean that people driving on the highways aren't going to stop somewhere for relief. If they're stopping because the rest area is not closed and they're having to stop on the side of the road, let's say, that becomes more dangerous for those people traveling. Are we looking at those risk meters so that we have a full picture of the cause and effect of some of the downsizing? Because what I'm hearing now, where do we ever recover from a maintenance standpoint on the deterioration of the assets that are now deteriorating before these cuts go into place?
Commissioner Shanklin, I really appreciate you bringing up the risk of these, particularly in the context of folks being on the shoulder of our roads and claims against ODOT, if you will, as an outcome of that. We've actually been in conversations with the Department of Administrative Services risk team and the Department of Justice about risk to this, increased risk to this, to ODOT on account of reduction in services, and that is a active conversation. And the Department of Administrative Services is working on a statewide liability study that has specifically flagged that, and so that is a conversation that is ongoing. I think that we need to document what our policy is around reductions, and then essentially follow through on practicing that policy. But there is certainly an increase in risk to travelers and to ODOT in these reductions, and I'm cognizant of it, and I think that we're looking at it and starting the conversation around how to analyze it and think about it at a agency leadership level.
Shane.
Thank you. I wanted to kind of extend that concern about risk to ODOT itself. I have seen in areas of the state where crews are small and widely dispersed, that when a big snowstorm comes, people, extend themselves or maybe overextend themselves to try to maintain the level of service for the community. And people being out, by themselves when there should be two people or two machines out, or people, saying, well, it's silly for me to turn around and stop now, even though my work shift is supposed to end, because then someone else would have to spend 2 hours driving out to here just to pick up where I left off. Those are real concerns for me, and I hope if that's a real thing, if those kinds of safety risks for our staff are real, that we will emphasize those in the future when we're having discussions about shrinking crews, closing down service centers, et cetera.
Commissioner Chang, I thank you. I mean, you were right that I think folks struggle to, as you said, to to pause when they need to pause for say like and understand that like it's that they're exhausted, that they've been working a long time, or that they need to be like that they that there's a risk to like overexertion. I think that's very true, and that's been actually front and center in our conversations recently during the like recent like during the fires, because crews have been working long hours and under some really challenging conditions. That is an ever-present topic, and I think that we continue to center crew safety, and I think that part of the conversation, and I'm going to say like shift in mindset around doing less, is like recognizing that like it's I think really hard for like folks on the ground to let things go and to see like service levels and conditions deteriorate, and accept that that's how it's going to be with like fewer people and less and fewer materials. And like I think we're all accustomed to seeing Oregon roads look a certain way, and they're going to look different because we won't be able to take care of them as well. And making sure our crews feel, I'm going to say like empowered to center safety and make that like set work schedules, and like I guess I'm going to say like scope of work for any given day to ensure that it's like it can be performed safely is really important. And if crew sizes shrink, we're going to have to adjust what that daily scope of work can be. And I think that's a continuous conversation in our maintenance leadership team, and with our region managers, and that is something that we will need to put into practice as the budget, if the budget is the budget reductions come through, and we're talking about like what that would look like now.
Thank you. Yeah, and I brought that up less to ensure that ODOT is doing what they can to take care of our people, and more to emphasize that I think that that's something that should be communicated during this budgeting process, that these reductions to operations and maintenance literally are dangerous to our employees.
Absolutely. I thank you for that. Thank you for that flag. I think also like Vice Chair Byers, I think I can fill many slides with lists of what the impacts are going to look like. And I didn't do that, but I'm regretting that right now, because I could put that all in front of you, and it's a frequent conversation like in a lot of spaces right now, sharing the scale of what's at risk with these cuts. And I don't want to shortchange it at all, because like the risk of these cuts is it's truly like tragic for the state of our system in the long term, and the safety of Oregonians in the like short and long term, and like the safety and health of our crews as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tova?
Good morning.
Sorry, I don't know if my audio worked. Commissioner Baker, go ahead.
Well, thank you. This is precisely why I raised the question earlier about beginning with our maintenance and operations, and seeing if we couldn't keep it whole, because we are talking about things that really manifest themselves into some really difficult things. I mean, we talked about inefficiency. The risks are really significant. I think we're talking about the deterioration of the system, and just a reminder that we're coming off a really light snow year. So many things that we were concerned about happening last year didn't happen, simply because we had a light snow year, and we were able to get ahead in many places on our maintenance. So we got lucky in the winter of 25, 26. The other, just as a clarification, the rest areas that we're talking about are rest areas that are ODOT rest areas, not rest areas that are managed by the Travel Information Council, right?
That's correct. There are 8 ODOT run rest areas, and the other
Yeah.
rest areas are run by the Traveler Information Council.
So, Commissioner Shanklin, probably the rest areas that you are familiar with on the interstates, down to the coast, over the mountain, those are not not ODOT rest areas. They're maintained by the Travel Information Council. And Tova, or Travis, we're not talking about rolling back the funding to the TIP, right?
That is correct, Commissioner. That funding is dedicated by statute. And so neither you nor ODOT have any authority to redirect that. That would have to be a legislative conversation about redirecting funding from TIC rest areas to ODOT maintenance. And I have not heard anyone raise that.
Okay. And just, when we're talking about this publicly, we probably need to be clear that we're not talking about the TIC rest areas, because those are the rest areas that most people, I think, are aware of. And we wouldn't want to create the false impression that those were going away.
Agreed.
Thank you for
Understood.
clarifying, Jeff.
On that note, I'm going to go to the next slide, which focuses on project delivery reductions. Project delivery includes our local government funded positions and program, and then the interstate bridge replacement funding area as well. There are 120 positions identified that for reduction as part of this, and all of those positions are vacant. We've been holding many positions vacant across project delivery for budget savings in this last biennium and this biennium. And in this biennium, that's at the direction of the legislature. So these are the positions that would be eliminated through the reduction. This represents about 10% of the total number of positions in the project delivery area. So the good news is that these positions are all vacant, so layoffs wouldn't be needed. However, because these positions are already vacant, we're already experiencing the impact of reduced staffing. And I think that probably the biggest the biggest impact we're experiencing is loss of technical expertise across engineering, our technical engineering, our scientists, our project and program management and support for project delivery work. So that loss of expertise is being experienced as we have less depth of knowledge across across project delivery, fewer folks doing the work, and that really impacts the timeliness of all of our work on the project delivery side. We're slower getting through designs and reviews and right of way acquisition, slower to slower to engage with our partners and communities, and slower to complete agreements with our partners in advanced projects, and that is all happening right now. I really worry about how many places where we're one person deep in a technical area, and how often we're leaning on that single person to be the subject matter expert for the whole state, and seeing individuals in rotations or taking on additional work to cover for vacancies. And I think that we're seeing burnout in that. So what folks outside of ODOT are experiencing is just the awkwardness and slowdown of how we're getting our work done on the project delivery side, and inside the agency. I think we're seeing a frustration and some and burnout as fewer people are carrying a workload. And I think this is I know that the risk to the system is really different than on the maintenance side, but folks really struggle with feeling like they're not performing and feeling like they need to do more to fill in the gaps, and that's wiping folks out, and that is something that I worry about. But I think we're slower to update technical guidance and to be agile and creative in how we're solving problems, because we just have fewer people doing the work, and they're spread very thin. We are really I think in a lot of ways, like emphasizing reductions to project delivery in order to protect maintenance and operations. And that is, I think there's like clear messaging that protecting maintenance and operations is important for is critically important for so many reasons. And that's like one, I think the vacancies that we're carrying are intended to protect that maintenance and operations work on the ground. I don't know if there are any questions about the project delivery reductions, and if there aren't, we can move on to another division.
I have a question just for clarification.
Yes.
When we're talking about the project delivery team, are we speaking in terms of ODOT staff that are performing projects, or are we speaking about projects that are coming out that's ODOT that contractors are actually working on?
It's a I would say it's a combination. The way we deliver our projects is some of our projects are designed in-house, and then we contract out the construction of our projects. The construction of our projects is all contracted out for. This is like our longer term federally funded capital projects, and the design is completed either by ODOT employees, or in some cases we outsource design of the projects, in which case we're managing the contracts and providing technical oversight in the design of the projects.
So I know in some of the, on the insurance side, some of the clients that I represent, I often hear about kind of some of the slowness of some of the technical expertise that have to come out and give approval to job sites at different phases of the work that's being done. So with this reduction, does that mean that we also are going to have to explore some of the policies within those construction documents, because it's going to slow down projects, which will also come at a cost? Are we evaluating that at all to see what the impact is?
Commissioner, it's a great question. We are. I think that we're in some cases we are what we're trying to do in terms of what positions are being or have been held vacant and and would be eliminated. We have really been trying to protect our construction offices and the teams that provide contract management, oversight, and inspection on the ground for our construction projects. And so these reductions are really avoid impacting those folks specifically, because some of the biggest cost risk to the agency is in the management of our construction contracts and the oversight of those construction contracts. And that is it's from my standpoint, most important for us to see projects completed and constructed on time and on budget. I think that we do continuously look at our contract spec language and our design guidance to adjust to present conditions, and that's an ongoing thing. I will say that there's been some slowdown in being able to do that because of vacancies in technical policy positions in project delivery.
And I worry there a little bit, because I know that if we get rid of all of our expertise and we are sending out the less experienced on some of these projects, it's going to call for redo in some areas because of the expertise not being there. And I don't know how that plays out, but I do know, because I've experienced it on some projects where the expertise hasn't been there. The green light was given to go ahead, but it should not have been, and it has calls for some of that work to be redone, right? Which comes at a cost in terms of change order, which, it's going to disrupt the budget for that project. So these are some areas that I'd like more information on to, study to see what the true impact is on some of the projects that we have, especially from an experience standpoint of our staff who's going out and inspecting some of these projects.
Commissioner Shanklin, those are great points there. Ongoing conversations internally. I think that you've really hit on one of our biggest risks in construction contract management is ensuring that we have experienced folks working on our teams, and we've seen a lot of turnover. Like a lot of folks have retired from the agency. A lot of folks have sought out other jobs that feel more secure, secure in the face of budget uncertainty. And I think that is something that we're struggling with, is bringing on new folks and training them, and ensuring that our projects have the appropriate oversight in the field. So great questions. I would love to talk more about that, and we can get more information to you about how we do our work today, and how we're quantifying and qualifying the risks in front of us, and steps that we can take, and that we're already taking to manage that. Great. Appreciate the statement.
Commissioner Chang.
Thanks. I wanted to ask if it's possible to make this slower delivery of projects a little less abstract by giving us a sense of where we might see projects slowing down, lacking all of the agency support that are needed to keep them moving. If you could point to 10 or 15 projects around the state and say, these projects will not proceed at the pace that we would like them to, because we're not able to basically adequately staff them.
Commissioner Chang, I'll work with my team and look at how we can show you examples of that slowdown. I suspect that it's probably not exactly 10 to 15 projects that are slowing down, but small slowdowns across the portfolio. But we'll work on how we can show you the numbers.
That would be great. Yeah,
You bet.
I mean, if it's even more projects, and that will feel the impacts of this. A longer list is probably more impactful in terms of communications.
You bet. We'll get that together for you.
Thank you.
Okay, you guys know I'm a stickler on time, so I just want to do a time check with everyone and see how many more divisions we have to, because I think it's important that we hear from everybody. I just want to know, do we have 4 more?
Yes, Commissioner, I believe we have 4 divisions, and they know that they need to hit the high points only, and move very swiftly through them.
Okay. So I don't want to stop our conversation or stop our questions. And if we have to go over, we have to go over. That's life. But I just wanted to make everybody aware of it. And we do have a lot more work to do. Go ahead, Commissioner, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Travis, don't need it right now, but this discussion, I wonder if you could give us some narrative at some point on the possibility of, how do I say that? The challenge of hiring out contract management versus having the in-house capacity, what the pluses and minuses are to that, and what the costs of, not advocating anything. I just think that's a question we probably need to understand.
Yeah, we can come back with something along those lines. It's rarely more efficient or cost effective. We'll just put it that way.
Well, it strikes me that as we go forward, we have a lot of maybe smaller projects that probably we just manage out of the regional offices, but some of the other ones, how do you staff up for that? And then when the project's done, and particularly in the current environment where, at least today, we can't see a financial path to doing a lot of the bigger projects that we may want to do.
Right, let's go to next slide. I think I'm up for policy data and analysis. So for the record, Amanda Pietz, I'm the division administrator for policy data and analysis. So within our group is statewide policy and planning, research data, climate, the Transportation Safety Office, as well as multimodal components, including passenger rail and public transportation, biking and walking. So I'm going to defer most of my time to other divisions who have deeper impacts. The impacts to policy data and analysis from reductions are relatively small by comparison, and that is because of that chart on the left-hand side, which shows the majority of our funding is federal. The other state includes, Connect Oregon and some other big funding pots that are separate. And so our state highway funds, most of those are used for match for federal funds, so we don't lose those dollars. Those are important for the capital investment plan, for scoping, for a number of different efforts across the agency. So as we look at kind of our federal highway flexible funds, we often use those for supplementing some of our planning and policy work. So that's within the tier 1 reductions that you'll see, as well as use it for modernization of our data systems. So the federal funds that we get basically provide enough funds to collect the data, to report on it, but not to update our legacy systems. And so given the impacts that you just saw from Tova are so dramatic, I kind of volunteer that the Policy Data and Analysis Division take a little bit bigger cut of reduction, and that we front load it so that we save positions, so that we preserve some of the safety on the transportation system. So our reductions are taken in tier 1 and 2 and front loaded. Tier 1 are lesser reductions in terms of lack of consultant support. Tier 2 are more substantial in terms of that funding goes to updating our traffic count program, and that has long-term efficiency. So if we're actually able to update that, we save on positions, we save on efficiencies long-term. But for now, we just delay that and defer it. So unless there's questions, I'll pass it on to the next division just to make sure we try to get back on time and share some of the more substantial impacts.
I see Vice Chair.
Just very quick, Amanda, of the federal funds, how much of the work that we do there is mandated by the federal government so we get other federal funds, and how much of it that we're currently spending conceivably, and again, I'm not advocating, could be shifted off to maintenance and preservation work on the state system?
Yeah, great question, Vice Chair Brouwer. So none of the funding that we have that's federal can be shifted to maintenance and operations. It has to be used either for planning purposes, for research purposes. There is some flexible funding that could be used for capital projects. We try to maximize that as much as possible. So I've been working across with our planners out in the region and at headquarters to try to shrink the program and right size it and be efficient and effective as possible. So we've saved a little bit more on the federal side there and actually redirected some of that towards our capital investment program to support project development. So we've tried to maximize as much as we can, but it's only flexible to a point. Great, thank you. All right, next slide, and I'll pass it over.
Thank you, Amanda.
Hey, good morning, all. Amy Joyce, Division Administrator for the DMV. So I want to talk briefly. I'll try to compress this quite a bit. DMV has done a lot over the last, 7 to 10 years. Increasing efficiencies with the new system we put in place. You can now do more than 30 transactions online 24/7 from home. We've added self-serve kiosks in grocery stores. We've used that new system to automate approval of most title transactions, which used to all be done manually. So that's huge efficiencies. We're constantly assessing employee capacity and customer need and shifting people around. And in field offices, we're maximizing appointments, especially same-day appointments, to help customers spend less time in the lobby and more time doing their day-to-day business. And a statistic I cite frequently that you may remember, we've got about the same number of budgeted positions at DMV as we did 25 years ago, but there are 800,000 more Oregonians, and of course, nearly all of them need to come to DMV for our services. And with the vacancies we've been holding for budgetary reasons and for other reasons I'll talk about in a minute, we're far below that 25-year-old staffing number. For budget drivers, we're about 65% personnel costs. And so after general efficiencies to keep those costs down, there aren't a lot of other places we can look to save money. So we've got some really, kind of hard cost budget drivers we can't do much to change. So postage, the law requires us to send certain things by mail or even by certified mail. So $9-10 million a biennium on postage, merchant fees, right? So right now, when people use their credit or debit card, we have baked those costs into the fees that we asked the legislature to set for our products and services. That's running us about $9-10 million a biennium, and every biennium that's going to continue to go up. We are thinking about looking to start assessing those costs to people who use debit and credit cards. But then, of course, that's an increase on our customers. IT solution cost, another big cost driver. So when we updated our IT system, we were directed to use a commercial off-the-shelf CAT system, which we did, which reduces risk, but it also increases costs. So just the licensing fees, the maintenance fees for that IT system from an external vendor costs a lot of money. So if we think about how all of that impacts customers and risks going forward. So in tiers 1 and 2, we will be eliminating mostly vacant positions. But to be clear, and this addresses, I think, Commissioner Baker's comment earlier, that a position is vacant at DMV does not mean that we don't need, really ideally, to fill that position. We are down people in field, on the phones, across headquarters, and these are really important roles. Another item, which gets into a little bit of the minutia of state budgeting, but we have held a lot of vacancies at DMV so that we could strategically change many of our positions to reflect the modern way we're doing business, right? So we've put a lot of these simple transactions online or automated them, which is great. But what that leaves then is the more complex transactions. And so we have people classified into certain positions that work doesn't really exist anymore. And to be able to change those positions to meet the more complex work that the people of DMV are now doing, we have to use vacant positions to make that happen. So the vacancies aren't just sitting there and not needed. They're needed for a number of different purposes. But then just in terms of pure numbers of what our customers are looking at. So more field office closures, really even in tier 1, those daily ad hoc closures, you can see that map on the far right screen there. That's through June, through half of the year. Those red stop sign dots are all the offices that have closed just on an ad hoc basis in the morning. We determine we don't have enough staff to open that office, so it just closes for the day. And that happens, many times per week. So that will just really increase. When we get into if we get into tier 3, what we're really talking about is permanently closing several field offices across the state. I suspect we would likely start into double digits of offices that we would need to close across the state at tier 3. So customers will need to drive further, they'll wait longer, and they might not even be served when they're trying to go to the DMV. We won't be able to make facilities improvements for customers. We won't have personnel who can make program improvements. We'll be just really too busy doing just the day-to-day keep the lights on kind of work. And I do want to mention too, we've talked a little bit about support services division, and Thomas will speak here in a minute, but I want to stress, and Travis mentioned this as well, how critical the support services division is to the work of DMV and how we serve customers. So we rely so heavily on IT. We rely a lot on human resources, on procurement and the facilities folks. So the cuts that happen at the support services level, which probably gets the least attention among the public or anybody else, severely impacts how DMV, as the public-facing part, one of the public-facing parts of ODOT, is able to serve our customers. So again, if we go to the next slide. Yeah, so here we see tiers 1, 2, and 3. Tier 1, vacancies and support supplies and services. And tier 2, again, more vacancies, but stressing again, that doesn't mean those positions aren't needed. They really are. And then tier 3, we're into those really significant cuts and huge impacts to customers. So take your questions.
Amy, I have a question. I mean, DMV is one of my favorite things, you know that. And
I do.
I think that one of the things that RVTD experiences in our call center, as an example, is you can't just put anybody in. You can't, if somebody calls out sick, if you don't have those other bodies, there's nobody to fill it. And I don't know how Oregon paid leave is impacting DMV. But when I hear about policy that legislators make, what we're seeing with employers across the state is we're having a really hard time with our workforce, especially in technical jobs like DMV, where you can't just put anybody in that situation to process the paperwork. Is that impacting you? The Oregon paid leave and people being gone?
Yeah,
And the
Chair
filled
Brown,
vacancies.
yeah, Chair Brown, I mean, certainly folks do exercise their benefits under, FEMLA, OFLA, paid leave Oregon. So that is, it's a different workforce than it was 10, 15 years ago. And I think everybody can understand that. So that is impacted by us. And certainly your comment about you can't just put anybody on the phones. I can't just put anybody behind the counter. I couldn't go out and work the counter. I wouldn't have the first clue, right? It's a very technical job. It is a ton of information that people need to know because of all of these complexities that have, been put on us by the legislature and others. And we're responsible for collecting a lot of revenue for the highway fund too. So not losing that aspect where, when we get into these severe reductions, we're talking about lost revenue, but we can't just put anybody behind the counter at a field office or on the phones. It's highly technical, and they go through a ton of training to be able to serve customers in that way.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think with us having to hold those positions open like we have, any kind of backup that you have now, when you showed that slide with the red dots, it just shows that we have nobody to fill those positions when somebody is exercising their benefit rights, or even taking a vacation, for Pete's sake. We don't have the workforce. And I think that it's easy for legislators sometimes to just say, well, we're just going to cut these positions or hold these positions open, not realizing that already we're feeling the impact. But by tier 3, it's going to be devastating.
Yes. For customers. Yes.
For customers. And I know Commissioner Baker made the point, it's a convenience thing. It is a convenience thing, but when people have, make wages and they have to sit the DMV for 6 or 7 hours or whatever it takes for them to be able to do this stuff, it impacts economics again. And then they're away from their work, their job, the workforce. So, it's kind of a domino effect. But anyway, I'll stop because I'm now using up our time. So go ahead, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Amy, thank you very much for all the work you've done. I think you've done a lot to automate the system and make it easier for customers to do business from their home. DMV is probably the service that the ordinary citizen has the most contact with. And most state services, most people don't have a contact with directly. I'm really concerned, and where we're at now with the office closures, and I think that's a problem. I think if people have to, plan to drive to wherever one of the small offices are, take time out of their work and get there, and there's no one there, and particularly when they've made an appointment, that's a real problem. I'm not blaming DMV about it, but I'm saying that's just something that I hope we can make the legislature understand more about. That's a real issue.
Yeah. I completely agree with you, Vice Chair.
Do you have any more slides for us, Amy, or?
No, I'm sorry, that is all. So if you are done with DMV, I think we're on to the next topic.
Well, I do want to, I know that you've come in front of the commission, especially during the motor voter situation and our software. And again, your staff stepped up, worked a tremendous amount of hours to get everything fixed. You guys have been great. And so I just want to thank you again, you and your staff, for everything you do, for ODOT. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll pass that along to the staff. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm not sure who's next.
Thomas. Yeah, Carla.
Yep. Hi, Carla. You're somewhere. We haven't seen you yet. Is Carla here? Uh-oh.
I am here. Can you
Great.
hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, excellent. Chair Brown and Commissioners, thank you for the chance to speak with you today. I am Carla Phelps, Division Administrator for CCD. So looking back over the last 6 years, CCD has really worked diligently to absorb budget pressures while still protecting the safety and integrity of the Oregon transportation system. Our team makes sure that oversized and overweight loads are compliant, that unsafe carriers are addressed, and taxes and registration are collected accurately. These really are core protections for the state. So to manage reductions, we made strategic, thoughtful, and structural changes to how we do business. We moved staff out of leased facilities into state-owned facilities. We recognize key functions or reorganize key functions to remove duplication, streamlining operations, and improving customer service. Whenever we did see vacancies open, we, much like Amy, reclassified those positions into what we see was the current needed positions due to the shifting of our work. We've also reinvested those vacancy saving dollars into immediate emergency roadside maintenance needs, as well as develop some key resources to drive the work of tackling our IT systems that are required to meet legislative and federally reporting requirements. We also expanded industry self-service tools, which allowed us to permanently reduce staffing by 7 FTE so far. And we've pursued federal grants to help offset state costs and support safety-focused initiatives that are key to our mission. But even with all of this work over the last several bienniums, our largest risks are still ahead of us. And that includes very old roadside infrastructure and outdated IT systems. As these systems age, the accuracy of our data is going to continue to decline. Evasion will increase, and our ability to enforce compliance is going to weaken. Next slide, please. So looking to the future as to what the tiering budget reductions will do for CCD. The first here is reductions that pull from vacancies that have come to fruition, if you will, because of our own efficiency efforts. Again, these savings were earmarked to address increasing fraud, evasion, and unsafe carriers. The greatest challenges, however, come in the following two tiers, tier 2 and 3. From CCD's vantage, the biggest threat we face is the growing gap between deteriorating roadside infrastructure and the funds needed to maintain it. Vacancy savings that helped us patch these critical needs are gone. Construction and maintenance costs continue to rise sharply, upwards of 190% in some cases. Resource shortages due to budget limitations in other parts of the agency, which we rely on for support, like IT and facilities, is more limited, which means our essential projects keep getting pushed out or canceled. As our roadside systems decline further, we will have to begin closing scale locations. Due to resource constraints, we'll be forced to focus only on mainline and national network routes, leaving secondary routes far more exposed to oversized and overweight loads. That means increased damage and higher safety risks to local roads that our Oregonians rely on every day. Industry will also begin to feel these cuts directly. Longer call wait times, slower processing, fewer audits, delayed permits, and declining data quality, all of which leads to more noncompliance and higher tax evasion. As to IT risks, every update to our legacy COBOL system brings new additional risks, system breakages, inaccurate financial reports, and operational disruptions. And without stable funding, required IT upgrades will be delayed, which puts the House Bill 3991 requirements and our federal compliance at risk, including vital federal dollars the state relies on. Even though CCD has taken significant steps to cut costs and operate more efficiently within the budget constraints, we are one vacancy away in several of our business lines from a really bad day. Further reductions will hit core services, core safety protections, and core revenue functions, and the risks are growing faster than we can manage to keep up with them. I am happy to answer any questions at this point in time.
Chair. Go ahead, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Carla, can you talk a little bit about the changes to the diesel tax and what the impact will be? And I would assume there will be less out-of-state auditing, and how does that affect the roadside checking and safety issues?
Yeah, absolutely. So with the implementation of diesel tax, that means full implementation of data. So we will continue to do our weight mile tax audits, but we'll also continue to do full IFTA audits as well to make sure that, carriers are across the U.S. are reporting their miles that they travel in Oregon. As far as roadside, part of the bill, we were granted additional positions to help address tax evasion that may come through the use of dyed diesel. So our officers in roadside operations will be doing fuel tank dips, which we do not do today, to ensure that carriers are not running on diesel that they shouldn't be running on, therefore increasing the fraud risk. In addition to that, we will be gaining a couple FTE as well to help just with operations of the IFTA implementation and making sure that transition is captured correctly and accurately. We're also charged with upgrading our IT systems because our current system would not be able to implement a full IFTA and diesel taxation model. So we have staff diligently working towards implementing not only the replacement of two systems, but also addressing the weight mile tax simplification process that also came out of the bill.
I thought the discussion during the legislative session was moving to the diesel tax and relying on IFTA, and I never can forget the other acronym, the registration one, that under that system, a state didn't have to audit out of state. It would rely on other states auditing their carriers. And supposedly that was supposed to reduce administrative costs substantially. Not accurate?
So we will be having a hybrid system. So we still have weight mile tax, and we will also layer IFTA on top of that. So we will have our auditors doing the full weight mile tax audit. And then within the reciprocal agreement of IFTA, we are charged with doing so many IFTA audits across the US as well. And the states have that, other states have that same agreement. So for the IFTA piece of it, we do rely on other states to conduct those audits to ensure that their carriers are reporting their mileage accurately for miles ran in Oregon.
Sounds like we increased administrative activity rather than decreased it.
So to be fair, the weight mile tax simplification is certainly a win-win. So this is where we're reducing the 85 current tax rates down to 10. That is certainly administrative savings for not only ODOT, but significant savings for industry to track their miles as well. we expect to see approximately 12 FTE savings over, the next 3 to 4 years once that goes live. It's basically a swap in the administrative burden of diesel taxation. So we save some here, but we increase some over here. And so just shifting of those duties, if you will.
Does it have any impact on reducing our ability to monitor safety?
Diesel taxation does not. The budget cuts, however, certainly have an impact on our ability to monitor safety.
Do we still contract with OSP to do those stops?
We work with OSP through our safety program. We have sub-recipients that receive federal grant dollars to assist with truck inspections roadside, and OSP is certainly a big player in that field, and we are gaining their participation increasingly year over year. So those are federal funds, so those are protected. So that's how we utilize OSP. We also rely on OSP to help us in our enforcement operations through pursuit of individuals who illegally bypass the scale facilities. They have been resource constrained as well, but we are seeing additional number of OSP officers that can assist us in those situations.
Yeah, I know it never was very popular with the actual OSP officers to do those safety stops.
They see the value in it as much as we do. And again, we have continued to see increasing participation from OSP over the last couple of years, and forecasting the same in the next couple of years.
Good. Thank you.
Other questions from commissioners? Well, thank you, Carla.
Thank you.
So I guess we're moving on, and Chair Brown and commissioners, for the record, my name is Thomas Amato. I am ODOT's Chief Information Officer, and I am the interim Chief Administrative Officer overseeing support services. As a quick reminder, Support Services Division is part of Administrative Services, and it contains human resources, IT, data solutions, procurement, facilities, and employee safety. I want to start with just a couple of areas where this division has contributed long-term savings for the agency. You've already heard mention of savings from relocations, but I want to note that the relocation savings across the entire agency are even greater than you've seen. Through the work of our facilities department, who's done just a ton of needs identification and negotiation over the last 2 biennium, we've reduced our leased-owned office footprint by 338,000 square feet, and that results in $7.5 million in sustainable agency-wide savings each biennium. And those savings go directly to, or accrue, I should say, to the benefit of the divisions that were carrying those real estate costs. And I want to pause here just for a second to just put 338,000 into context, because that's just kind of a big number. The ODOT HQ building, the T building where I'm at today here in Salem, is 150,000 square feet, floors 1 through 5, north and south wings. That's 2 T buildings. 2 T buildings. Also inside IT, we have done a lot of tuning across our state data center servers. We've reduced charges there by about $16,000 per month. And we also did hard work to optimize queries on high value data queries across the agency, resulting in savings of about $25,000 per month. And that translates to about $1 million per biennium in savings in spend with the state data center. And we in support services are going to use those savings to mitigate the effect of reductions to our service and supplies budget in the ARB, which I'll talk about on slide 2. Now in the 25-27 LAB, you heard mention about how support services had some pretty significant reductions, and we did. About 32 positions were abolished. That's an 8.3% reduction in our workforce, and it was across all areas: human resources, procurement, IT, data. And so far, we have maintained service continuity without major reorganization, but our approach with these reductions has really just been to focus on work prioritization. We just have to continue working closely with the business lines to figure out what is most critical. But I really want to caution and echo what others have said, that just because we are prioritizing does not mean that important work that should be getting done, isn't being delayed or isn't being neglected. It is. And deeper reductions, especially as represented in this sort of the tier 3 model for our division, it would likely require structural changes or the deprecation of entire programs. And looking ahead, we face emerging and ongoing risks. We're probably seeing some similar themes here as we move along. In our facilities, our building facilities for our offices, we did move people into owned buildings. Our building maintenance budget, it's well below industry standards. We own 1,100 buildings with a replacement value of about $1.6 billion. And by state budget guidelines, we should be investing about 2% or $32 million every biennium into the maintenance of those properties. And our budgets fall well short of the standard, 50% or more. We currently have an $86 million building maintenance deficiency backlog to be addressed over the next 5 years. And we continually reassess our building conditions every year. We'll be doing 200 this biennium, and that number is going to continue to grow. So what that tells us is that we know we need to make difficult decisions about which of our facilities are going to merit or do merit continued maintenance investment, and which we may need to vacate or sell while we still try to keep agency operations running at acceptable levels. And we are elevating that planning exercise now. In IT, we continue to focus on maintaining existing systems. It's our core focus. But as an agency, we do advance select high priority modernization projects. Some of the work going on in CCD is an example of that. But we have to constantly balance our efforts against handling a significant technical debt backlog. We have an very large existing catalog of applications that need upgrading. Cybersecurity risks are accelerating because of AI. And the agency itself demands more digital solutions so that everybody can work more effectively and efficiently. So ironically, not surprisingly though, demands on IT go up when we try to find efficiencies. And finally, I do want to call out procurement. Should there be further reductions in procurement, especially in the tier 3 model, it's important that everybody realizes that delays out of that group, by their nature, have an outside effect across the agency. It's an outsized effect because delays in procurement slow down project schedules, which can have a ripple effect. They delay the movement of funds to our vendors, which has an economic ripple effect. And we can also potentially put federal grants in jeopardy. Move to slide 2, please. So here's what the tiers look like for support services. And as others have said, I don't want to minimize tier 1 and tier 2, even though it might look like it's sort of easy. Yes, we can accomplish tier 1, and we would say it would be relatively manageable starting point for us. We would abolish 4 positions. Again, most likely vacancies, because we are holding vacancies today. And the majority of that reduction effort actually comes from a $3 million permanent decrease in our services and supplies budget. That's mostly going to be coming from IT. It's because we saw some savings in IT, and we really want to do as much as we can to preserve and protect the positions we have, because we need these people in ODOT to do the work. There's a consequence to that, though, in that to the extent that we dig into that service and supplies budget, just as DNO would have less materials to work with, we will have less flexibility to surge when unexpected needs arise, and they do. It limits our ability to bring in specialized contract support when we need to do that also, or to bring some real focus to some projects that might be running behind schedule or need some work. And so that's just a risk that's sitting there even with that tier 1, because to accomplish that tier 1 FTE count, we dig into S&S to the tune of $3 million. Tier 2, we basically repeat that. Another $3 million dig into our services and supplies. At that point in time, we are actually starting to dig a bit into the facilities maintenance budget. It happens a little bit in tier 2, which then exacerbates our facilities, our facilities maintenance backlog. And then, of course, at tier 3, we're looking at an FTE count of 41. Most assuredly, those are not vacancies. And by that point in time, we have pretty much run the well dry on our services supplies. Only about another $1 million of services supplies is involved in tier 3. There just isn't much to give up anymore at that point. And the story with tier 3 is, as you've heard from others, it's just not good. We would be shifting to a keep the lights on, maintenance and security only in IT. We're probably going to be looking at workforce management issues with our decreases across human resources, and there would be procurement delays, which would just be unavoidable at that point. So those are my 2 slides. I went through them quickly, and I'm available for any questions.
Go ahead, Commissioner Baker.
I think Vice Chair was ahead of me.
Sorry, I can't see everybody, so I don't know why. Okay, Vice Chair.
You're on mute, Lee.
Sorry, I had a computer glitch here. Just 2 really quick questions, Thomas. Just want to throw out, have you considered on the facility side on some of the office structures, not the T building, sale and lease back to shift that risk, the maintenance risk onto a contractor? I know that's contrary to what you've been doing, trying to move maintenance into our buildings. That's one. And the second question on procurement, in the visioning process that we've been doing for the governor's group, we've been hearing a lot about delays and problems with the Attorney General's review of contracts and increasing costs. And I just wondered your comment on that, if it's appropriate. Thank you.
Sure. Excellent questions. On the contracting, I can check with our facilities manager. We do not do wholesale turnkey handover of maintenance. I imagine we've done some studies on that in the past. Our maintenance team, our facilities team is quite small, and they are super efficient. We do contract out spot services as needed where we don't have expertise. So contracting is part of our maintenance protocol, so to speak, but doing a full handover, like an outsourcing of maintenance, we can look into that. But my guess would be that similar to when things were done like with IT in the past, that a wholesale outsourcing, the efficiency level probably is not going to be there. This team is, I'm amazed at how efficient they are and how much they get done with their small but mighty size. But we can look into that. Regarding procurement, there are actually, as you said, discussions going on now around DOJ processes. And I meet with our interim CPO and we talk about that and how that's going along. I don't want to talk too detailed on that because I would probably end up speaking out of turn. But I do know that there are things that have been identified for what we could do to perhaps speed things up by either raising the dollar thresholds for legal review or having some standardized templates that we would be able to reuse to speed things up so that we don't have to go to DOJ every time, as long as we can stay within the bounds of what has been approved or delegated to us. So I guess I'm more affirming that what you, the basis of your question, that work is ongoing, and I think it's good, and I think we should pursue it further, but I don't have further details on the status.
Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Chair. Thomas, thank you. I'd like to talk about the technology for just a moment. And, this is an area where I think we should not be reducing at all, that we should be spending. Because I think without exception, when I talk to the leaders inside of ODOT, they would like to have better tools. And when we hear leaders talking about legacy COBOL applications that lack documentation and lack knowledge, it's just not a place that we should be as an agency. And I think some of the basic fundamental things that we're lacking to be able to employ AI tools, for an example, we could find so much improvement, I think, in productivity throughout the throughout ODOT. So I'm a proponent of not being on the bleeding edge of technology, but behind it, not very far, so that we can actually start implementing tools, whether it be in anybody that we talk to today that has presented. So Travis, this is one where, again, I think we need a technology roadmap that we can articulate with the legislature, and I think this is a place that we can invest in. And I suspect that the trade-offs here in terms of investment in people is enormous. Thomas, do you have any reaction to what I'm saying?
I agree. And so you're speaking to the permanent chief information officer, right? So everything you say is music to my ears. Putting my agency leadership hat on, right? You look across the agency, these are just hard decisions to make across the agency. Like, where are these things going to, where are these reductions going to happen? Where are they going to come from? I would say that prioritizing IT investments is something we should really try to do, make it one of the last places to hit. But it's tough, right? Because as soon as you do that, you have to go look somewhere else. Where is it going to come from? An investment, we could and we should put together something that looks like a more mature technology roadmap for the legislature. It would have dollars and demands behind it. And the big question is always going to be, well, where is that money going to come from? And how sure are you about what we're going to get back from it? I'll close just by saying that we are addressing the highest priority things that we can. And so as Carla mentioned, there's risks in her program, but the modernization work taking place in her program, something that we have prioritized, we've earmarked, we know we need to do it. And we're going to be turning to some other high priority needs that we have inside our delivery and operations group. It just never seems like we can get ahead of the curve. And there's a definite feeling that the lack of investments that we are making today, they're going to show up even more in terms of inefficiencies down the road. So 4 years from now, 5 years from now, 6 years from now, right? You're going to wish you were somewhere else. And we just aren't setting up that path right now to be better 5 years from now. We're setting up a path to just be better in some places and maybe just try and hold on tight. And that's sort of the investment scenario we're in right now.
Yeah. And so I'd encourage you to be a champion of pushing on this. And I know I'm in your corner if I can be helpful on this subject, because some of these changes are expensive, enormously expensive. But I have a feeling that there's probably hundreds of little projects that we could do that would really make a difference across the agency. And unfortunately, when you put pressure on the IT budgets, you can't give up the old system support. So what it does is it takes away your innovation and it moves it into that old system support, because you got to keep these legacy systems up and operating, or the system comes to its knees. I'm always surprised, Thomas, at how many outage alerts I get every year. Yeah. And I think it's just a really good indication of maybe a little bit too much duct tape and baling wire that we've got with your team scrambling to keep these applications operating. So anyway, appreciate the opportunity to jump in here, and I think Director Warner, this is probably one place that we really need to think about, how we can get more resources there, because it will help everybody, I think, in achieving their budgets. So I'll shut up.
Mr. Baker, you've described the situation well, and I appreciate the support.
Any other questions from commissioners? Thomas, thank you. It was an eye-opener for all of us, as usual. I think as we get deeper and deeper into this, we're becoming more and more concerned. I keep thinking about economy of scale and what is the state going to do? Because if ODOT is in the situation, what are the rest of DHS? And on with the IT, and you think about technology and everything that goes across the state, everything we do. So sure it'll be a topic of conversation during the session. Okay, if not, we're going to move on to Stefan. And again, thank you. Welcome.
Good morning, Chair Brown and Commissioners. My name is Stefan Hamlin. I'm the ODOT Budget Manager, and I'm here to actually do the one approval request for today. So we are here presenting the final 27-29 agency request budget. So on this, I only have this one slide. It's a very busy slide, so I just want to orient ourselves and our audience to make sure we understand this. So on the left side are all the budget structures that the legislature actually will approve. Our final agency request budget is in those middle columns, the yellow or tan color column. And what you guys approved was in June. The preliminary ARB is in the first three columns on the left side there. And then there's changes on the far right. So what you'll see is that we are actually down approximately $30 million, and we're down to 548 positions. So as mentioned earlier by Travis and Daniel, when we came to you in June, we knew that we were going to reduce by 200 million, but we did not know what the FTE or the position reductions would be. So that 548 is due to the reduction packages. And if you refer back to slide 12, you will see that that 548 is what we showed you on slide 12 when we talked about the tiering of the positions. As for the dollar changes, they fall into three main areas. The first one is that you heard our Delivery and Operations Administrator Tova Peltz talk about reducing project delivery more to kind of preserve maintenance and some of the other functions. And so you'll see a negative in project delivery and a positive in maintenance. They don't exactly wash out because we've had some other changes that have happened. And I will talk about those in the next set. Here, so the other changes that have happened as we enter into the state budget system, the assumptions that we've made on personnel costs actually get trued up with what the state will actually allow. So some of those changes are reflected, or all of those changes are reflected in here. So we also had our POPs reviewed, the ones that you guys approved back in May, and as part of the June approvals. In working those out with DAS, we were able to identify a few where, particularly the transportation safety POP, where we, and this is down in the PDAD line, that $10 million reduction there is due mainly to determining that that POP is actually a revenue-only POP. We're increasing a fee to pay for existing expenditures in our transportation safety office and some of the grant funds that go out to our student driver training programs. And then the last change on our POPs is that I'm going to jump down to the FBD and OAS lines. The RUC POP was completely initially budgeted in FBD, but we are moving the portion of IT from FBD to OAS, so you'll see that shift happening down there. The last item I'd like to highlight is in our PTD. We are still, even though it has organizationally changed and is now under PDAD, it is still a separate budget structure. That $10 million reduction is due to a revenue shortfall we have in the rail program there. So that's in addition to the state highway fund, the $200 million that we talked to you guys about. This is a $10 million shortfall where we are matching our expenditures to the historical revenues that we've been receiving from our federal sources there. So I guess I do see Vice Chair Byer, you have your hand up. I did want to mention that I believe you had earlier asked about the FTE or the positions and what the magnitude of the reductions are. So if you look at the far left columns and then compare that, so like for maintenance, there's 1,500 positions. So taking almost 200 positions out, you can see the magnitude of what kind of reductions those are if you compare those columns there. So yeah, I guess I will I will take questions.
Vice Chair.
Thank you. Stefan, this is, I want to make sure I understand. The first two columns there, the June ARB, is that the current budget? Is that the starting place?
No, so
Or
the
is
June
that what we
ARB,
approved in June?
that's what you approved in June. So we've
Okay.
already gone through current service level, doing the reductions and adding pops. So that was what you guys approved in the June
Okay.
at the June meeting. And then these are just the final numbers that we're actually going to be submitting to ask CFO.
So significant increase. What we still don't have, or what I still don't see, is a comparison to our current operating budget in terms of reductions to what we're proposing in the final ARB.
And we can get, so if I understand you correct, Vice Chair Byer, you would like to see what our current budget is versus our reductions
And the positions.
Okay.
I think because we're focusing on we've been focusing on the positions, although also on the money. And I'm trying to figure out or have a baseline from this is where we're operating now. What are we proposing?
Okay. Well, I believe, and we can put it into a table, but what we presented in June actually did have that base budget or current service level budget view in there. So we can give you that information. I don't have that available right now, but we can definitely make that available for you.
That's fine. So we're talking, it's a reduction of 548 positions. Is that what we're saying?
That's correct. So the $200 million, so that's what we've been talking about in all morning, right? The $200 million state highway fund reductions are already in these numbers. And then the 548 positions, that's what all of the division administrators just walked through. In total, if we did tiers 1, 2, and 3, it would be that total of 548 positions. And we have to provide a balanced budget. And so that's the only option we have is to
got it. And all but 200 of them are currently vacant positions.
I would have to get back to you on that. I do not have the actual.
I believe that what Daniel and Travis were saying at the start was there'd be, if we had to do all three phases, that we'd be looking at eliminating 200, how do I say that? 200 positions above vacancies.
Commissioner, I don't know that we have a perfect cross-reference, in part because every day positions come vacant. So we really have said that we need to wait until the end of the legislative session to know which positions would be filled and which would be vacant at that point in time before we can really comprehensively say the number of vacancies versus filled positions. Every time a position comes vacant that is on the reduction list, we leave it vacant. So we're getting better and better alignment over time. And so within another year, there might be even greater alignment than we have today.
It's hard to really get a clear picture on that, Travis, because I know a lot of the discussions of how many layoffs would we have to do, and I realize that's a bit of a moving target. But if I understood it correctly at the start, we were saying it would probably require about 200 positions, which is less than almost 400 we were talking about the last budget.
Yes, it would be less than last time.
But it'd be about around 200, give or take, depending on how many vacancies and which ones you need to refill.
Yeah, I don't know that we have that available right now, but again, it will change between now and the end of the biennium and likely go down as we hold positions vacant that are on any reduction list.
So
It's hard to articulate that, but essentially it means we would be of currently authorized positions. We're 548. Maybe that's the best way to look at that.
540 total job reductions that are vacant or filled, and would, regardless of whether they're vacant or filled, would affect our ability to serve Oregonians going forward.
And that's beyond where we're currently operating.
No, it is from our current service level budget, which is more than we have currently filled. So then,
I understand. It's hard to grapple with that number. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank
Within
you.
our current service level budget, we have about 4,800 positions. Of those, about 548 would need to go away. Some mix of vacant and filled that will be determined at the end of the process once we know how many positions we would actually reduce, and after a year of filling and vacating positions.
Okay.
Commissioner Chang.
Thanks. I'm just trying to track how the tiering of the reductions will be presented. So if I'm following correctly, what we're looking at right here, this is tier 1, 2, and 3. All of them. But when this is presented to decision makers, there will be some explanation of tiers 1, 2, and 3, and a breakdown of kind of the dollars and the positions at each of those steps, so that decision makers will be able to think about whether they only want to take tier 1 and come up with some other revenue or redirect revenue from other places.
That's correct, Commissioner Chang. So we would go back to those slides that showed the dollar reductions in the budget, the position reductions, the job reductions by division, present that information, and it will be more of a conversation because it is not an official part of the budget process. We will give this to the CFO. It will be available to legislators, and then ultimately they can choose to buy back tier 3. So we're not going through those. They could buy back tier 2 and 3. They could buy back some portion. We've broken it into $50 million increments. They could buy back, $47.2 million if they want. They can do any amount. So it is a starting place for discussion, but certainly not the end, and certainly not a rigid framework that they have to operate within. It's designed to give them information about how to prioritize reductions in a way that would minimize the impact to Oregonians.
Thank you.
So if there's no other questions, we would ask for your vote in favor of submitting the final agency request budget, as that is due at the end of August.
So I'm looking for a motion from the commission.
Madam Chair,
Let's see.
I would move approval as submitted of the, I guess it's called the final ARP budget as presented.
Okay, and Commissioner Chang, are you seconding that? I saw your hand go up.
I can second that, and I also just had one more question for our discussion period.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Let's go into discussion.
So I also just wanted to ask, in terms of what's being presented to decision makers, I do want to ask about that. What's the phrase where you redirecting the redirecting component of the information? So decision makers will be presented with those three options, reduce our expenses, increase the revenue, or redirect existing revenue. And we will provide them with a table that is attachment 2 as part of that.
Yes, Commissioner, that again will be another discussion between us and them. My guess is we will provide them a version of the table, and then they will ask us approximately 37,000 questions and ask for additional information in a different format. And we will continue to iterate on that table. But the table will be a starting point. One of the things, and if we have a chance to continue the discussion and Daniel comes forward, we would discuss the fact that we don't know yet how much is unobligated in all of those accounts. We have a sense of the revenue because, again, it will be at the end of the biennium another year from now when we have to do that reconciliation. So we'll present to them the information that they need, and based on their questions, iterate on that as we go forward.
Okay.
And to add one more finer point on what we're doing today and what we're submitting, the process doesn't have anything in it for us to really do have a discussion about revenue redirection or even really tiering. Like that is very prescribed for us on the agency request budget piece. As soon as we transition into governor's budget, that's when these conversations can start to happen. And then in legislative budget. So our part is very defined for us, but we're preparing for like that next step, right? That's probably what we're doing.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that.
Chair.
Well, it seems to me that one of the things to Commissioner Chang's response was, as the commission, a recommendation we can make to the governor would be regarding switching. And one of the things we talked a lot about last time was asking the legislature to remove all those funding restrictions where we had no flexibility to move money around where it made the most sense. And I think that makes sense to do that. What the governor does with it is really her business, but I think we responsibly could make that direction or recommendation, I guess it is. Does that get at your point, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, I just want us to, I'm not necessarily saying that we should recommend that. I just want it to be a clear option pathway that is, presented alongside other potential solutions or strategies.
I don't think you get that on the table unless the commission makes that recommendation. And I think staff is constrained in what they can do, but certainly in whatever format we could, the commission could make that recommendation to the governor, whether that's in a separate memo that says, we've presented you with our balanced budget, but here's the constraint and here's what we ought to do, or here's what we recommend.
I don't think there's any problem with us doing that. So it looks like we have a motion on the floor. Commissioner Shanklin has to jump to another meeting. I'm going to go to a vote here on approving the final agency request budget. And I think we can just do all those in favor. Give me, let's see. I don't know if we want to do voice or if we want to do thumbs up. Let's do thumbs up. Raise your hand. Let's see. Sorry, I don't know what to do here. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Oh, yeah, and I guess, okay. Opposed? None? All right. We'll move the approved budget forward. Now, the second piece of this that we haven't really talked about was the potential options for revenue redirection. So we have talked about the tiers, but we haven't talked about the other things. Travis has put up there that we can continue this discussion and have Daniel present or push that to a future meeting. Problem is, so we have a little bit of time. When does the governor present her budget? By December, correct?
Yeah, we're gonna just do December 1.
December 1. Okay, so we know that our agenda in what month are we in? August is full. I don't want to lose sight of this because I think that that's an important piece of it. So
When's our next? Do we have a meeting in September?
I'm looking real quick because I can't remember anymore.
We have an extra virtual meeting that has been scheduled in the month of September. Its agenda is generally full. We might be able to rearrange that in order to provide some time. There may be some time in the August meeting, so we can come back and give you an option, Madam Chair. If you do want to push it out, you have the time in August, September, or October, I would imagine.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I can suggest,
Sure.
perhaps it doesn't have to be really a big deal. I think it's ask staff to prepare a memo for the commission's transmittal that essentially says we've sent you the budget the way we've, with the money that's available. We recognize that one of our biggest constraints is all of the restrictions the legislature have passed, and we recommend that you propose to the legislature taking those away and giving the commission flexibility to prioritize use of the funding, something to that effect. I think Travis knows what I'm trying to say.
I think we all know what you're trying to say. We're just hoping that that they hear it. So
all you can do is try.
We can try. Absolutely. So maybe what we could do is if staff could do that and maybe have something for a draft for us to look at either, let's go for the October meeting.
It's too late.
Is it? Okay. Well, we could do it in September. So could you have something to us by the 15th of September?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, let's do that and we can squeeze it into our virtual. We'll make time for it.
Great.
Okay. Well, we have covered a lot today. And I want to thank the staff because I know we've asked a lot of questions. I think it did show us our due diligence as a commission that we're thinking about this. We're thinking about every line item. We're thinking about everything that we can do to help the situation. We're also trying to flag areas that we feel strongly that we're just, it's kind of like the roadway. We're letting it go, and it's going to be really hard to pull it back together once this stuff is all gone. So we have to keep after it. And I just want to thank again the staff because I know you put a lot into the slide deck, a lot into your presentations and the time you spent. And I think it was great discussion. And I'll just look to the rest of the commission if there's any final comments or thoughts from the rest of the commissioners, how they felt about the process and what we accomplished.
I appreciate all the work the staff did. Good discussion today. First time I've seen the commission really get into it.
Okay. Well, if there's no more discussion, go ahead, Commissioner Chang. And I see Director has a comment.
I mean, I'd just like to say that within the scenarios that were presented to us, there are painful cuts to capacity and painful cuts to provide service to our communities and to the state of Oregon. And I appreciate the staff presenting to us those scenarios, which can help us balance our budget, but which, I know must hurt incredibly. Anyone who has a public service ethic, that must really be painful to present that kind of those kinds of scenarios, and to be thinking about those. So thank you, and I'm sorry.
Mr. Baker.
Yeah, I will join that sentiment, Commissioner Tang. These are really tough and really painful, and I think as we as commissioners, I know how supportive we are of the team and the staff, and just having these conversations, I know that they're really hard to listen to from us. So I do say, I wish we didn't have to have them. I, apologize for, maybe making some strong statements, but it's time where we've got hard decisions to make. The other thing, Madam Chair, that I think is important is I don't know that we've done a really adequate job of telling the story. And, somehow, and it kind of harkens back to your comment early on in the governor's task force talking about communication. And how do we communicate this? I mean, we're seeing it because we live it every day. And somehow we need to explain to Oregonians the pickle that we're in, and the choices that we're making based on the constraints that we have. So if we could think about how we communicate this, I really support your comments. In that meeting, that's one of the critical factors that we need to deal with this plan. So,
Director.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the dialogue today. Just one other quick housekeeping thing. Also on the agenda was a funding work group update from Kelly, and I see that Kelly is on there. I know that she has a noon meeting with legislators, so we'll bring that back to you so you can get an update on that. But I just wanted to make sure that to acknowledge that we will get that information to you. We just didn't want to, but we had such a good discussion today. I wanted to just acknowledge that.
And thank you for bringing that up. I was going to bring that up as my last item before we adjourned. And the subgroups have been meeting along with the visioning group. The visioning group will be meeting next Friday, I believe it is. And so, you might tune into that. It's a virtual meeting. What I see happening right now is the groups are working extremely hard to meet all these deadlines. And I'm concerned, as is everybody, that we're going to be able to pull this off because there is just so much data and so many things that we're looking at. And you're right, Commissioner Baker, we have to tell the story somehow. And that's one of the things that I just keep banging the drum on is that, just talking in my own local area to people, they have no clue how we're funded and what we do. And they're starting to get an idea. When things start falling apart, they will really get the idea. And for someone who just went through a huge service cut and a layoff of 65 employees, I can tell you that transit wasn't on anybody's radar until the cuts happened. And then all of a sudden it has become, again, the household conversation in my community. So with that said, I think that even though we've had to make hard decisions and we're making these recommendations, as these things unfold, it will help with the conversation. It's a hard help because it's one that involves people. It involves people who are losing their jobs, and it involves people who are being impacted by the cuts. So as we move forward, maybe people will start waking up and paying attention a little bit more to what's happening in their state. And hopefully I've been looking through my list of legislators and going through each one, figuring out who is it that I'm going to target next to talk to, that they need to put this on their radar screen. They need to understand this. And so I encourage each one of you as commissioners to do that too. And hopefully we will make a difference this time. So again, thank you everyone for your time. And I'm going to adjourn this meeting if there is consensus to do so. All right. I see yes. Everybody's giving me thumbs up. Enjoy your lunch, enjoy your Friday and your weekend.
Thank you, Chair.
See you soon. Thanks.